Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Accreditation Unlocked. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Clough, and today we're going to explore one of the most powerful and sometimes underutilized tools in the accreditation process: data. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Data, reports, spreadsheets, endless charts. Sometimes it feels like a compliance chore. A mountain of numbers and percentages that exist only to satisfy accrediting bodies. But what if I told you that buried in those reports is the real secret to smarter strategic leadership? What if those assessment cycles and accreditation findings weren't just about ticking boxes, but could become the very compass that guides your institution's future? That's the lens we'll use today. Shifting the percentage of data from something you have to collect for accreditation into something you can use to drive decisions, allocate resources wisely, and demonstrate continuous improvement in a way that strengthens your institution's reputation and outcomes. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's unlock how leaders can turn assessment into strategy. The leadership mindset for data-driven strategy. Let's start with mindset, because leadership begins with how you frame a problem. Too often, accreditation data is seen as compliance paperwork. Faculty and staff collect it, assessment committees analyze it, and leaders file it away, maybe pulling out a key stat for a board report or highlighting a number or two in a strategic planning session. But when leaders embrace the idea that data is strategic intelligence, everything changes. Instead of thinking of it as a burden, they see it as a window into the institution's strengths and challenges. Think of it this way. Numbers tell you what's happening, and narratives explain why it's happening. As a leader, you need both. Assessment data shows you, for example, that retention rates are dipping in sophomore year. Accreditation self-studies tell you that faculty are concerned about advising and that students feel unsupported. When you put those two together, you've got both the evidence and the story that can inform a strategy. The leadership mindset is about asking, what does this data mean for our mission, our students, and our future? That question takes data out of the compliance drawer and puts it right at the heart of strategic planning. Making smarter decisions. So how does data actually help leaders make better strategic decisions? Let me give you a scenario. Imagine an institution where student learning outcomes in math courses show consistent underperformance. The initial instinct might be to critique the teaching methods or push faculty to revise the curriculum. But when leaders dig deeper into the assessment data, they discover a pattern. Students entering with lower high school math placement struggle the most. Pair that with retention data, and you see that these same students are the ones leaving after the first year. Suddenly, the strategic decision becomes clear. Invest in a stronger bridge program or early math support interventions. That's not just a compliance response. It is a strategic move that aligns with student success goals, improves retention, and addresses an accreditation recommendation. Another example, accreditation reports may highlight the need for more diverse experiential learning opportunities. A leader who reads this not as a mandate, but as an opportunity, can strategically expand internships and community partnerships. That investment boosts employability outcomes, strengthens ties with local businesses, and positions the institution competitively, all from following the trail of the data. The key is not just having data, but having leaders who ask the right questions of the data. Like, where are the gaps between what we say in our mission and what the numbers show? What priorities emerge when we line up accreditation recommendations with student success measures? How do these findings fit into our larger institutional strategy? Smarter strategic decisions don't happen in a vacuum. They happen when leaders connect data points to the broader picture of institutional health and direction. Resource allocation with data as a compass. Now let's talk money, because strategy without resources is just a wish list. Leaders are constantly asked to make tough choices about where limited funds should go, and nothing strengthens a case for resource allocation quite like data. Consider this. Your institution wants to upgrade its learning management system. The faculty have been asking for it. IT says the current system is outdated, but the budget is tight. Accreditation reports show that student feedback on course delivery has been trending downward, and assessment data reveals gaps in online course quality. Suddenly, you're not just debating an upgrade. You're looking at an evidence-based investment tied directly to both compliance and student success. Data provides leaders with the evidence they need to prioritize spending. It helps justify decisions to boards, donors, and legislators. It also builds transparency. When you can show the campus community that decisions are made based on evidence, not politics, trust grows. Here's another angle. Resource allocation guided by data helps void vanity projects. Without data, leaders might invest heavily in something that looks innovative, but doesn't move the needle on outcomes. With data, you focus on the areas where impact will be greatest. I often encourage leaders to think of assessment and accreditation data as a budget compass. It doesn't tell you every step to take, but it points you in the right direction. When aligned with your mission and strategy, it keeps you from going off course. Demonstrating continuous improvement. One of the most repeated phrases in accreditation is continuous improvement. But let's be honest, not every institution does this well. Some collect data, write a report, file it away, and repeat the cycle. That's compliance. But that's not improvement. Leaders play a critical role in making sure data actually drives change. That means moving from findings to fixes. If assessment reports reveal weak student performance in writing-intensive courses, what actions follow? Does leadership create a writing center, invest in faculty development, or revise core curriculum requirements? The difference between a recommendation sitting on a shelf and a real improvement is leadership follow-through. Accreditation teams don't just want to see that you collected data, they want to see that you used it. That's where leaders can shine. By making visible, data-informed changes and tracking the results, institutions demonstrate that they don't just talk about improvement, they live it. And here's the added benefit. When you use data to drive changes and communicate those results, you build credibility. Legislatures, boards, and the public gain confidence in your institution's ability to deliver. Students and faculty see that their feedback matters. The accrediting body sees a cycle of improvement that's authentic. Leaders who frame data as a continuous story, here's what we found, here's what we did, and here's what happened, create a culture where accreditation isn't feared, but embraced as part of institutional growth. The Leadership Playbook for Data-Driven Accreditation. So, what does this look like in practice? Let's build a leadership playbook for using data strategically. Number 1, ask the right questions. Don't just look at the numbers, interrogate them. Ask, what story does this tell about our mission? Where are the gaps? What opportunities does this reveal? Number 2, involve cross-campus voices. Data doesn't interpret itself. Faculty, staff, and students bring context to the numbers. Leaders who involve multiple voices in interpreting data build stronger, more actionable strategies. Number 3, link data to mission and values. Accreditation isn't about pleasing external bodies. It's about living up to your mission. Leaders should always tie back data to the institutional story. How does this evidence reflect who we are and what we aspire to be? Number 4, celebrate and communicate small wins. Improvement is incremental. Don't wait for a 5-year cycle to show progress. Highlight quick wins, a boost in first-year retention, improved course satisfaction, or increased faculty participation in assessment. Leaders who communicate these wins build momentum and morale. Number 5, avoid these common pitfalls. Data overload. Too much information without focus is paralyzing. Leaders must help prioritize. Vanity metrics. Don't focus on numbers that look good but don't matter. Focus on what drives mission success. Lack of follow-through. Collecting data is easy. Acting on it is leadership. This playbook is about moving from compliance-centered strategy to strategy-centered leadership. Accreditation data becomes not just a report card, but a roadmap. As we wrap up today's episode, let's return to where we started. The idea that data is not a burden, but a bridge. Accreditation and assessment data give leaders the tools they need to make better decisions, allocate resources effectively, and demonstrate authentic continuous improvement. But the difference lies in leadership. Numbers on a page don't change institutions. Leaders who interpret, act, and communicate based on those numbers do. So if you're in a leadership role, whether president, provost, dean, or director, I encourage you to shift your mindset. See every accreditation report not as a compliance exercise, but as a strategic asset. Ask the tough questions. Follow the trail of data and use it to chart a course that strengthens your institution's mission and future. That's the heart of Accreditation Unlocked. Finding the deeper value behind the process and using it to build institutions that thrive. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Accreditation Unlocked. I'm Dr. Ken Clough, and I hope that today's discussion inspires you to lead through data, to see assessment not as a burden but as a bridge, and to use strategy to unlock the full potential of your institution. Until next time, keep leading, keep improving, and keep unlocking the power of accreditation.